So, the spoilers are out for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 355, and let's just say that we get a big moment from Jiro in this chapter, and that she potentially helped Hawks with the defeat of All for One. And we'll see exactly how she's able to do it right after this. Hey guys, how's it going? It is your boy, Manga Andrew, and I'm here to cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia Manga Chapter 355. And like I said, from what we see with the spoilers for this chapter, yes, we are still focusing on the fight between Endeavor, Hawks, Jiro, and Tokoyami versus All for One. And we get to see from the spoilers, this is going to heavily focus on the individuals trying to crack the mask of All for One, and that they potentially do succeed at doing this, but with some casualties. So, let's talk a little bit more about the spoilers by diving right into them. Because from what we see with the spoilers, the chapter begins with Endeavor wounded on the ground. He wonders if Shoto and Dabi are okay and tries to get up, but then falls down again. He recognizes that it was wrong to get angry with All for One because the one responsible for this battle and these wounds is himself. Cut back to the sky with Hawks stating that he was able to feel through his feathers that the attack narrowly missed Endeavor's lungs. In other words, he can still fight, and Hawks will proceed with the plan based on this. So, from what we see with these spoilers, Endeavor most likely is not going to be playing a role specifically in this chapter. He's going to eventually come back and play a bigger role later, but at this moment, Hawks, Jiro, as well as Tokoyami are the individuals that have to go up against All for One. And from the next line of text spoilers, we have Tokoyami getting angry with his master and says that he was sent to this area precisely to provide air support, so it makes no sense to tell him to get out. Hawks acknowledges his mistake and asks, "Save me one more time, hero." And this is very cool because this is making reference to the fact that Tokoyami was the one that pretty much saved Hawks' life, and that without him, Hawks wouldn't be in this fight to be able to eventually deliver a final blow on All for One. So it's cool that Tokoyami is here and that he is somewhat a part of the plan to provide air support. And getting into the next part of the text spoilers, we have All for One beginning to speak by saying that he can't waste much time and begins to transform his entire arm. In his thoughts, he deduces that Endeavor is not dead and the other three will try to stall for time until he returns. The two birds are a problem and the best way to destabilize them is to attack Jiro. So he sends several ill-looking creatures in her direction. However, Hawks sends her up with his feathers and cuts off the attack before it hits her. And then we're getting more into the next line of text spoilers where he, most likely in reference to Hawks, sends these feathers towards All for One's mask and hits it again with his sword, but it's still not strong enough. Tokoyami holds Jiro and tells her that the mask is the target, that destroying it with sound will bring their victory. Jiro has an intense expression and is shaking. She says she has determination to spare, but was barely able to see the attack launched towards her. She then realizes that Midoriya and Aoyama were constantly fighting this fear. So this is something very interesting. We're going to see a little bit more characterization and development from Jiro in this chapter, but most likely what this is inferring is that she was not meant to be fighting against All for One. Tokoyami was, but she was most likely not here. And that the main reasoning that she's here is because of what Aoyama and Deku went through with All for One. And now she's beginning to realize what truly trials and tribulations they had to go through. And from what we see with the next line of the text spoilers, All for One apparently realizes that she is trembling and starts to tease her, saying that she must have gone to the battlefield with a student's mindset. Then he turns his arm into a cannon much bigger than his own body, shoots in the direction of the two, and says that supporting characters have dreamed too big. Hawks tries to stop it, but is hit by the rivet stab coming out of his fingers of All for One's other hand. And here's where it gets a little bit more interesting because from what we see of the spoilers, Tokoyami and Jiro are injured, bleeding, and with torn clothing. And we have that it is then that she, in reference to Jiro, begins to say that things like fear, strength, and weaknesses make no difference at all. Her friends have cried because of what All for One did, and that is all that matters to Jiro. She shouts all this with tears in her eyes and launches a heartbeat surround legato, which hits All For One. So we do get to see that Jiro is able to get a hit out on All For One, but from what we see with the later part of the tech spoilers, despite being hit, All For One says that it was too weak. But just as he is about to strike back, he feels people grabbing his body inside the vestige world. He realizes that they are the quirks he has stolen over the years. He wonders if it is the work of New Order, but no. The, quote, weakness of an extra has reverberated within them, causing this effect. And this is something very interesting, something that I have to get into more properly when the translations are out. But this is alluding to the fact that potentially Jiro's determination and will to oppose All For One may actually be influencing the quirks inside of All For One to also revolt. So this is something interesting and something that can be tackled a little bit more later on. And now we're approaching the end of the spoilers, where we have a reveal that when All For One is stunned, Jiro shouts at Hawks to take this chance. He remembers that the 3 blows he landed against the mask throughout the battle and notices a crack. He then uses Jiro's attack to pick up even more speed and then hits All For One with everything, breaking both his swords and a piece of All For One's mask. End of chapter. So from what we see in this chapter, even though Jiro's attack was not significantly strong enough on its own to break the mask, it did help Hawks finally deliver the blow on the mask needed to break it. Now, does this mean that the battle is over with? No. Endeavor still needs to get back into the fight, and most likely than not, Jiro and Tokoyami are going to potentially face consequences for what has happened in this fight against All For One. They may not be able to fight a lot after this, especially if you notice something that happens to Jiro's head, but they did serve a purpose of stalling All For One long enough to be able to eventually break the mask, which is what their main goal and objective was. So all in all, from what we see with the spoilers, this is a relatively short chapter, mainly because it's a lot more action than it is dialogue, but that the conclusion to All For One's mask being broken may not necessarily be the conclusion to the fight. And unfortunately, My Hero Academia is going to be on break, so I will probably catch you with another spoiler video for My Hero Academia in 2 weeks. Which is actually cool because I actually have plans for next week to do something that I haven't done before. And I possibly will make a video on it. You're just gonna have to subscribe to my YouTube channel to see that content. And if you like seeing me cover the spoilers for My Hero Academia, you should also subscribe for that. And don't forget to leave a like on the video as well as leave a comment down below on what you think of this chapter. Do all that cool jazz, and hopefully I'll be able to catch you in my next video. Goodbye!